everyone, Jenna here with ClickReport, and today I'm going to walk you through all of our different AI button options. And we will talk about tips and tricks for that as well. So I have come to our Whisk Smart Template, and on all of our different Smart Templates, you now have these new AI features that are displayed in the pink boxes. So these are going to be grayed out until you generate the narrative, and then you have the option of selecting these. You do have to be a Sci-B member to get set up on these, and to do that, you will go to that coral banner on the Logs In page and click Add AI. There is a 3-day free trial period, but this video will kind of walk you through this specific feature of our AI option. And it is important to note, we also have the uploader option, but that's going to be discussed in a different video. But with AI, you have unlimited usage of all these different features. All right. So I'm at our Whisk template, and first to get started, I'm just going to put in some scores. Again, this is not going to work until after you generate this narrative. So the first thing I'm going to do is make up a few scores just to give us something to work with. We'll do some issues in visual spatial, and let's do some really big strengths in fluid reasoning. Okay, and I'm always going to put this student name and gender. All right, so after you generate narrative, you'll see that these kind of become ungrayed. Because we used to have the option of using these buttons, and every time you did a process, it costs like a couple cents, like 25 cents to $1. We do have our legacy pricing guide. You can largely ignore this unless you're one of our original members. We've now moved to an unlimited AI option. So this will be removed after we get through all the people that were with us from the very beginning. Okay, so after you have generate narrative, then you have all these different options to choose from. So we're just going to go through each of these together. We have our grade level rewrite. And this is so that you can speak to whatever audience you are trying to speak to in your report correctly. So I know sometimes we work with parents who may be at a 3rd grade reading level, but we still want to be able to communicate about their child to them, because we know how important this is to have parents sign on and be understanding of what is actually going on with their child. So we can change this. Let's do 3rd grade and submit. And after you do that, you can see that it says loading here. This may take 20 to 50 seconds. So you can do anything during this time period. You can do a dance, you can write a poem, you can sing. Well, you might not want to sing. Okay, so now that's been done, and it says narrative has been rewritten, replace, and use the original copy buttons to copy. And after you click OK, you'll see that your narrative changes here. And I am going to scroll down and click copy narrative, just like it told me to. And I'm going to go over to my Word document and paste this information. So as you can see, now it's written in a way that is at the 3rd grade level, just like we asked. So that is that button. And let's move on and look at the next one. So we have our translate option. And for all of these, you can do a range of different things. So you can put it at the 3rd grade level and then translate to Spanish. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to translate. You're going to select your language. You can see there's a ton here. And this is also really super important. There's a lot of times that we're tasked with these things that we have to do. Like, yes, you should always be able to provide a report in Spanish, but before now, that hasn't really been feasible for a lot of people. But with this, you're able to do that, so you can have that buy-in from the parent, even if they speak a different language. Okay, so we're going to submit. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time. Typically, it doesn't actually take more than 20 seconds. I guess if you're doing something super complicated, it could take longer. So just like before, you're going to have your narrative over here, and we're going to use our copy button, and it's going to pull that information. And now we have Spanish at the 3rd grade level. So you are able to paste this over to wherever you need to. And that is our translate option. And I'm actually going to get us back to our standard template and back to English just for purposes of this tutorial to show you the rest of these. All right, so this time we're going to do some strengths in verbal comprehension and keep with our weaknesses in visual spatial. Okay, so now we're going to move on to generating IEP goals. And because of that too, I'm going to go ahead and put another area of weakness. So this generate IEP goals, it's only going to generate IEP goals for areas that are below average, which makes sense. So it's not going to pull IEP goal for verbal comprehension or anything like that. And a lot of times, so these are options on all of the cognitive and achievement and behavioral templates. So sometimes generate IEP goals might be more applicable actually to an achievement test as opposed to what we're using here with the cognitive test, but sometimes it works too. So we'll look at these together. All right, so we're going to generate narrative, we're going to generate IEP goals, and this is going to talk about at the actual grade level. So for purposes of this, let's just do a third grader again, and it's going to create IEP goals that make sense for that actual grade level. So you can see these here, and for this one, it does keep the narrative in place so that you can copy that, because this is kind of like a totally separate thing. You're not manipulating your narrative, you're kind of adding to it, so that's the difference there. So visual processing, you can see that it has a goal and it has the measure, because we know that when we are working with IEPs, that's how it's done. You want to have the goal, but it also has to be very measurable. So that is kind of how this one has learned to generate those IEP goals. So with this one, you will use the copy result button. And just like with all of them, you're going to paste this over and get that information and put it wherever you need, manipulate it in any way that you need. But this will help you inform the IEP team on what might be a beneficial IEP goal for a student that you're testing. Okay, so now let's do generate accommodations. Same thing, this one's going to have the same format as that generate IEP goal. And kind of the way to think about it is if you're going to manipulate the narrative, it'll change in the narrative box. But if you're going to kind of add to the narrative, it's going to do it like this. So this is going to break between testing accommodations and classroom accommodations. That is kind of usually how I do my accommodations, because on the IEP in my state, those are separate things. And just like with the other one, you're going to copy results. Okay, let's move on to our summarized narrative. I would say this one is one that is used so many times a day, and this one seems to be our most popular button. So this allows you to select the number of sentences that you want to condense your narrative into. I know people use these different summaries on, sometimes people are putting actually at the beginning of the report, because a lot of times we think that people don't actually read our reports, but we do have very important information. So putting it at the front is super helpful. And then of course, always at the end too, kind of as your conclusion to tie everything together. Please excuse my dog. All right, so we're going to select our number of sentences and submit. And this is going to load again. You have 20 seconds to, oh, we didn't even have time to dance that time. Okay. So you can see that this changed that narrative and put it into this summary format. And just like with anything that's going to change our narrative option, we're going to use our copy narratives button here. Oh, actually our regular copy narrative button. And you can paste this over and you can see that summary there. So that is a very useful tool to have. And now let's move on to personal strengths, generate recommendations. So we're going to generate recommendations at the third grade level. And we'll wait for this to come up. And again, just like with anything that you're adding, this is going to pop up in its own window. And you'll be able to copy the recommendations from there. And this is only going to pull areas where we obviously see that there's a need for a recommendation. It's obviously not going to pull a recommendation for areas that are strengths for this child. Okay, so you'll copy your results here. This one it does have examples, so it will give you these examples for those different recommendations, which I always find is super helpful to provide to teachers. Because it's like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, but how are we going to do it? And that seems to be really helpful for both parents and teachers. So this breaks it down by classroom recommendation and home recommendation. Sometimes I do feel that we don't do the best job kind of including everybody. I know best practice is that we want everybody to buy into working with the student, but we have to actually give them the tools to do that. So by providing those home recommendations, that is helpful so that parents can take all this information that we're giving them and actually work with it. Okay, so you'll copy using that button, and again, you're able to change this, add to it, do whatever you need. Okay, so our last button is personal strengths, and this is one that I think is pretty important. So when we're doing these assessments for kids, a lot of times we focus on the negative. We're like, okay, so they have visual spatial issues, they have fluid reasoning issues, and because of this is what we have to do. But I really believe, and the research will back me up, that working with the student's strengths is just as important. So if we have this child that we're working with and we're seeing these areas where they need improvement, it is just as important to take their areas of strength and say, okay, but you can do all these great things and these are wonderful things for you. So how can we use that in your plan to make, your life easier and better by leaning on these really wonderful strengths? So that is kind of where this button came from. I feel very strongly about this process, so I always include the personal strengths in my report. Also, it's another way to bring the parents on board and say, I get it, we see issues, we have problems, but let's talk about this. Let's talk about all the great things about your child. And I have found that doing that really helps bring everybody together. So I felt really excited about this tool specifically. All right, and you can see here that it talks about what these different strengths are, and it also is going to give a classroom example and a home example. So yeah, you can use this in any way. And we had a lot of different strengths here because I left a lot of these at 100. And again, these are going to be personal strengths. So they're going to, if the score is within the average range, it'll pop that up as a strength. So, okay, that concludes all of our different buttons. And I hope you guys will take a look at this and take advantage of having these new tools. This has been something that our company has been super excited to be able to provide everybody. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and please take a look at the uploader video as well, and that will go through how you can use our new AI features to report and score any different assessment and not be bound by only the things we have available on our site. Okay, thank you.